once again, and welcome to the Waters and Stanton video channel. You know, most of us have got HF transceivers that have the 6 metre band on, but I'm willing to bet that a lot of you never actually venture up to the 6 metre band. Probably because when you do, you don't hear much, or you haven't got an antenna. Now, what do you use for 6 metres? Well, you could get yourself a small Yagi, but then of course you've got to have a rotator, and you've then got to put a mast up, etc, etc, and you think, well, is it worth it? And they call the 6 metre band the magic band, and the reason they call it the 6 metre magic band is because very often there's nothing much happening, and all of a sudden it bursts into life and amazes you, and then it goes to sleep again. So I can understand why a lot of people would not want to invest in a Yagi and a rotator for a band that sometimes is open and sometimes is not open. And, you know, can you justify the cost? Well, there is an alternative, you know, and I'm going to look at an alternative, and that's a simple 6 metre halo. The good thing about that is that it's omnidirectional. You don't need a rotator. Now, you can of course have a vertical for 6 metres, but that means to say that probably you're at a disadvantage when it comes to chatting to a lot of local stations. I say local or semi-local stations, because probably most of them will have Yagis, and if you're cross-polarised with a vertical antenna, you lose something like about 20 dB, which is a lot of signal. So it makes sense. A halo loop for 6 metres makes sense. As I say, you haven't got to rotate it. It doesn't take up much room. You can just put it on some convenient point on the house or on a small mast down the garden, something like that, and job's done. You know, it's interesting really, because I didn't realise that back in the 1930s we had a 5 metre band, 56 megahertz, and looking at some shortwave magazines around about 1937-38, the 5 metre band was in regular use. It was used as a sort of chat band really, before 2 metres became sort of the chat band. But I think we lost 56 megahertz, or the 5 metre band, I guess when TV was introduced, because all of a sudden it disappeared. TV robbed us of the 5 metre band because that was the part of the spectrum that the new TV system was going to occupy. Of course, the Second World War intervened as well, and once that part of the history was over, our TV system was developed on the 45 megahertz band and a bit above that. We'd lost the 5 metre band. The Americans had now got 6 metres, but we couldn't have 6 metres because it was too close to the TV spectrum. So the only way we could enjoy the benefit of the propagation on 6 metres was to just listen on that band. And when I say listen, we were able to work cross-band with the Americans. The system in the 1950s, late 40s and 1950s, was that we would listen on the 6 metre band, wait for an opening to the USA, and then work cross-band. We'd talk back to them on the 10 metre band. So we'd transmit on 10 metres, they'd transmit on 6 metres, and we'd work cross-band, and it worked extremely well. And in Christmas 1956, there was a major opening on the 6 metre band, open to across the Atlantic to America and to Canada. And in fact there was a number of openings around about that time because it was a sunspot maximum period. And that was how I think we realised the potential of the 6 metre band. When it's open, it's open. You get sporadically, of course, each year or twice a year you get the major openings in May, June, and you get a lesser opening towards the end of the year, sort of November, December. But when the sunspot cycle is at its peak or near its peak, you do get some major openings to the USA. Trouble is, you never quite know when they're coming. Anyway, let's now look at a simple 6 metre halo antenna that you could perhaps install somewhere down your garden, and be ready for that opening, because do remember that when 6 metres is wide open, you don't need a big antenna. You don't actually need a lot of power. It's why they call it the magic band. Anyway, let me show you a 6 metre halo that I've been trying over the last few days. I erected the halo on a fiberglass telescopic mast, which is quite handy for doing tests like this. And this is one of the fiberglass masts we sell. This one goes up to around about 22 feet. I've got the actual antenna down at the moment, so you can get a closer look at it, but I had it up at around about 20 feet. But it doesn't need to be rotated, it's omnidirectional. Anyway, let's take a look at the kit, how it all goes together and what you can do with it. The antenna comes in a plastic bag with the necessary bits and pieces, including the mounting bracket and the instructions for the connection. Here we've got the basic component parts laid out. That coax feeder, by the way, is not included. I've already connected some coax feeder to the feeder point, but I'll cover that shortly. And you've got the two horizontal sections, top and bottom, and the vertical sections, left and right. The vertical sections plug in to the horizontal sections like a sort of a trombone, and that gives a measure of adjustment of frequency, and that shorter horizontal section coming out of the feed point is the gamma match, and you'll see how that works when I do the final assembly. The antenna measurement is 80mm by 75mm. The actual measurement of the longer section will depend on the tuning of the antenna, which we'll cover shortly. Let's just take a quick look at the gamma match. It's a crude drawing I've done, but this is basically the gamma match they use on this antenna. You've got the horizontal section at the bottom right there, which is connected far right to the actual antenna. That is a metal rod which I showed you earlier on in the video. Then you've got a capacitor which is actually inside the connecting box, and the coax cable, the inner conductor of the coax cable goes to the other side of that capacitor. Interestingly enough, the shielding of the coax cable goes straight to the element. So at the feed point there is no break in the element there. There's a continuous element, and that coax sheathing goes to basically the centre of that horizontal part of the loop, and then you've got the gamma match off to the right, and that forms a matching section. The actual section can be adjusted. Sometimes the capacitor can be adjusted, but in this case, and I'll cover this in a minute, the actual gamma length of that rod can be adjusted slightly to get the best match. When it comes to adjusting the tuning of the antenna, either side can be lengthened by simply sliding this section in and then tightening this this nut here. So if you want to adjust the tuning, simply slide one section in or out appropriate. Slide it out to bring the tuning lower in frequency, and sliding it in to raise the frequency. Now the other thing is, let's have a look at this gamma match. They don't actually cover this in the instructions, but basically you've got a means here of actually lengthening or reducing the length of the gamma match. So basically what you do is you reduce this nut here and undo this nut here, and that allows you to actually slide the element in slightly. It'll change the tuning but also change the gamma match. And if you've got the gamma, there's an interlocking adjustment really, because you can adjust the gamma match for lowest VSWR, but it also affects tuning. But what you can do is just adjust the other length of the other side of the antenna to compensate. So basically you've got two variables. You've got the variable of adjusting this tube here in the sort of, I call it trombone section, and also adjusting the length of the gamma match. Have some fun doing that, but it's not actually super critical. I got 1.5 to 1 very easily, and that was more than enough for me. Now let's have a look at the way you connect the coax. You've got the terminal box here. On the right you can see that tubular shaped item, which is the capacitor. Then you've got the semi-transparent terminal block. That's where the centre of the coax goes, and the shielding of the coax goes to that solder tag in the centre. So you do need a soldering iron to solder the sheathing of your coax to that solder tag. And once you've made the connections, remembering of course to put the coax cable through the weather cover, put the cover on top to keep the weather out. Don't forget to check our website for a wide range of antennas that we stock. So how does it work? Well, I took the opportunity of trying it out on an activity night recently on 6 meters. What I didn't bargain for was I had quite a high noise level locally. I checked it on a 6 meter dipole that I put up as well further down the garden. The noise was a bit less there, but I checked the radio the following morning and it was totally quiet. So where the noise was coming from, I don't know. It was just unfortunate when I tested it on the activity night there was a lot of noise, but the following day the noise had gone and everything was working okay. There we are, that thing happens in ham radio. Anyway, here's a couple of contacts I had. In the meantime, you take care, enjoy your ham radio, look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now. Golf 3 Oscar Juliet Victor G30JV.
G30JV. Peter, you're 59008 IO 91.
G30JV.
67 IO 91 Tango Uniform.